everyone, Psycho Dude Horror here. Voice crack, sorry. So yeah, I promised you guys that I would do this like a month ago, so I'm sorry, but it is finally here. If you guys enjoy the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing, and let me know in the comments what your favorite, what the scariest part was, or what your favorite part was. And so, yeah, anyway, this is The Day I Hired a Hitman on Myself, Chapter 7, and The Day I Was Forced to Become a Hitman, Child Molester. Hey guys, so sorry for the last story looking like the ramblings of a crazy person. My migraine at the time just kept getting worse and worse, and by the time I was done writing, I couldn't even proofread it or stare at my screen any longer. I was literally shaking with pain, about to just kill myself and get it done and over with. Don't worry, I'm not suicidal. Well, by suicidal, I mean personally killing myself. I guess some would argue that what I did was suicide. In my opinion, it was more of a game, but hey, call me what you want, I honestly don't care. Anyways, I figure I'd leave one last quick update so I can let you guys know what's been going on, and it might just be the last day of my life. Let me explain. So I took my hard drive I saved for my laptop, and I had gotten rid of to a buddy of mine who was a programmer to check to see how the hell they hacked into my system. I wanted to keep it because I had some shit I wanted on it, and that had sentimental value, and I didn't want to find all the songs and movies I downloaded all over it. Anyway, he transferred the things that I still wanted over to my laptop and ran all the files to a program to check for abnormal files or viruses hidden in any of the transferred data. He didn't find any, so I was clear there. He downloaded some security software on my new laptop and gave me a few steps on how to avoid my security from getting breached. I probably should have told him that it wasn't just some random guy hacking my system, but if I got into details, it would possibly put him at risk, so I just thanked him and went on my way. As I was getting back to my hotel and going up to my room, I saw a man in a suit standing across the street just staring at me. I went inside, freaked out, and checked out the window every couple of minutes to see if he's still there. After a few peeks of him still looking at me, he got on his phone and eventually left. Shortly after, I went to a hotel, taking U-turns and backtracking to make sure I wasn't followed. I checked in and went to my room to check it out. I took my bug detector and went around the room. Nothing came up, luckily. As I went outside to get my bags out of my bag, I felt like I was being watched again. I looked around thinking I was just paranoid, but there, and freaking again, there was a different guy in a suit just watching me. Holy shit, how many guys do they have watching me this time? And why haven't they just killed me already? Well, I'd find out soon enough. I went to my room and started thinking about everything that just happened to me since I killed Mike. I started thinking about the car crash I'd seen and the people I saw in it. After thinking for hours, the girl in the car that was T-boned, I did know her. I remembered I did know her. She worked in a different branch for the company I used to work for. She didn't work in my building, and I didn't even know if she worked in the same city since my company was in several different states, but I was sure I'd seen her in my office dropping papers off to my boss. Why her though? Was it a fluke? Then I thought about the cop afterward. No one was around when I killed Mike. There was no report on the news about it. I wore gloves so there wouldn't be any prints. And I torched the whole freaking car. What the freak is going on? Frick it, I had no idea, and I'm dead anyways. I went to my computer and opened it up to look up a good bar to get fricked up at. Another command bar was open and said, "We need to talk. Sunset Park, tomorrow, blank PM. Go to the south corner, come alone. If you pull anything, you'll be shot. Don't be stupid." Well, frick it. They know where I am. They know where I am anywhere I go. They have people everywhere, and I'm willing they'll go to any length to find me. Maybe they just haven't killed me yet because they want a private place where they can do it easy and do it and dispose of my body. I can't run anymore. I don't want to run anymore. I had the time of my life, and now it's not fun anymore. Oh well, I'll see what they want, and I'm going to get shit-faced and have a good time. Later, guys, and in the words of our famous Ron Burgundy, stay classy, no sleep. Oh, before I go, I want to leave you guys with something. It was my favorite no sleep story I ever read. You may not like it, but it's the only no sleep story I've left with me that left me with my mouth gaping open. Thinking about its message while staring at the screen, I thought of it a few days ago, and thinking about what would happen if I did die. I tried hitting up the author to ask for permission to put it in my post, but it looks like he hasn't been on for the past 4 months. Anyway, here it is by user u/comealive104. I dreamt of hell. When it came to it, I was standing in a void with 1,000 other people, all shoulder to shoulder with no room to breathe. The air was hot and stale. Nobody moved. I took a deep breath and glanced around me. A carnivore ceiling encompassed us, a rocky ledge pressed on our feet. I stood on tippy toes to get a better view. Wait, not 1,000 people, more like 1,000,000. They went on for miles and miles on all sides. For several seconds, I could only stare. I heard it before I saw it. The decomposing, a strange buzzing filled my ears as the people around me collapsed, moaning, groaning, and foaming from the mouth. Eventually, all that remained were broken skulls, along with flies and hornets crawling inside and out. Back and forth, in and out. I stood alone, nostalgic and lonely. "Well, you made it." I turned to face him. A bald head, Arabic beard. He was busy playing backgammon with an invisible opponent. "Made it where?" "To where do you think?" He picked up a white button and gently replaced it with a black one. I felt something sink deep, far inside of me. My very soul turned dark and churned out a bit before settling out. Frick, yeah, I knew where I was. "You didn't believe in this place, did you?" He breathed the slightest of smiles. "No, sir." It was getting hotter. He laughed. "You didn't want to believe, did you?" "No, sir, I didn't." For the first time since waking up, I felt afraid. Terror began to sweep through my body like a wildfire. I was losing it. I fought to compose myself. "You really had me fooled, you know. I was almost positive that none of this was real," I said shakily. He smiled, nodding knowingly. I continued. "They said the greatest trick you ever pulled was convincing the world that you don't exist." His smile slowly faded. "No. The greatest trick I ever pulled was convincing the world that there was an alternate." I paused and shivered. "You mean there is no God?" The devil began to chuckle. His laughter increased with intensity until it deafened my ears. Then he spoke, and the boom crushed my thoughts into 1,000 fragment shards. The cavern walls shook. His words were roared beyond comprehension. each syllable a meaningless cacophony. I jerked awake, screaming and clutching my eardrums. Just a dream. It was just a dream. Several minutes passed as I sat in my bed, breathing heavily and sweating profusely. Then I heard again the devil's last words, this time softly whispered in my ear. I am God. Hey, how's everyone doing this fine evening? So, the events of this update take place about 3 weeks ago. I'm warning you right now. Shit is about to get real and very freaking graphic. I'm not sparing a single detail with what happened, what I did to that sick guy. So, if you're not very good with gore, I suggest turning back now. Of course, all details such as locations, names, and intel would be changed for my protection. Anyway, for those who are still with me, let's continue, shall we? I had arrived at the warehouse around 5 p.m. or so and got out of the car. I was greeted with an amazing sight. On the outside, this warehouse seemed old and rusty from years of being exposed from the elements. Inside, however, there was a quick tour while the lady who talked to me earlier was giving me the rundown. Her words were going in one ear and coming out the other as I tried to study every last detail of this massive place. We got to one room and my interest was piqued, as it looked like a goddamn launch room at NASA. A full HD projector was at the front of the room, and behind it were rows and rows of fancy computers streaming with codes and different applications. Each station had a man or a woman in a suit manning them. All of them had headsets on, seeming to finish up the day's work. I started walking around as the lady who recruited me was in mid-sentence, cut off by my body language showing I was no longer interested in whatever the frick she had to say about it. I was walking around looking at all the different monitors and looking at different applications on various screens, and it made me think I was on a spaceship. I didn't understand any of it. That was until I got to one man's workstation. Let's call him Mark. Mark was on his headset clicking around on his multi-monitor setup, and I saw something while peeking behind his shoulders on the far left monitor. It was a picture of a little blonde girl. She couldn't be more than 8 or 9. Pretty blue eyes that shined like the sky on a bright summer's day. She looked a lot like my little sister. It made me smile. I wondered why this picture was on his screen. However, he was on an application. It wasn't his background or anything. I approached closer and tapped on his shoulder. He turned around and looked up at me, seeming intrigued to what I was inquiring about. "Can I help you?" he asked with an upward inflection in his voice. "Yes, you can." I started here. "What's with the picture of the little girl?" I asked confidently, as if I'd just been hired on to run the freaking place. He gave a quick glance to the woman who brought me there, seeing if it was okay to talk to me. A quick nod on her head, and he continued. "It's a picture of a little girl that went missing 2 weeks ago. The mother thinks she knows who has her, but unfortunately the police are no help," he said. "So we have a search and rescue squad in the place or something?" I asked quickly. "No, sir. She had just put a hit out on this guy. Her old boss, a high-ranking banker who she used to work for, apparently a really sick frick. She sent us a picture in hopes that we might run into her at his place once we take care of the guy." Something happened inside of me right then. A kind of feeling that I can only describe as fate screaming in my face. I was supposed to be here. I was supposed to talk to this man. And I was supposed to ask my next question. Are there any other operators on this case already? No, sir, he said. It just came in earlier today. The woman had just gathered the funds to order us and to take care of it. I shot a quick glance over to my recruiter for the story's sake. For the story's sake, let's call her Anne. I'm taking this job as my first. Any objections? I said matter-of-factly. None. Nothing could be done to change my mind on this, even if I had to do it for free. She came over to the computer and asked me to give them a minute so they could talk. She came back up to me where I was waiting after a short time. This job isn't the type of thing I was going to assign you first. It's a hit. You know that, right? I'm well aware, I said, my tone hard as stone. Okay, as long as you know. By the way, how come you want this job so badly? I can see it in your eyes like you knew that girl, she said. She reminds me of my little sister, I said, my eyes becoming heavy and glassy. And I can't stand it when motherfuckers that have anything to do with it harming children. You only have one childhood, one time to be innocent and carefree. People who take that away from them deserve to die, slowly and painfully. I agree. What I'm getting at is even if this man had nothing to do with the little girl's disappearances, you still have to go through with it. You'll have to bear that on your shoulders, she said. She was surprisingly considerate. I realized that. Besides, he's a piece of shit banker. I want to hang his ass just for that. Probably a smug-ass fricker. By the way, if any high up the ladder bankers are reading this, no offense, you just happen to really frick our country and pretty much the world economy, and I don't like your kind. She smiled and went back over to the guy's station. Ready for the details of the job, and ready for my hit cherry. As I sat down in an empty chair a few feet away from the man, a printer went off in front of me. It started spinning out info, maps, and schedules of my target. I started smiling again. I contemplated my future, the fact that I'd actually want a permanent job here. My thoughts broke when Mark walked in front of me and grabbed the papers. He returned to his desk, labeling some of the files, ordering them to make it more accessible to me. He grabbed the manila folder in one of his drawers and put the stack of papers in it. Ah, how the folder brought back memories of how I got into this whole mess. He handed it to me with a serious favor before saying, "Good luck." I stood up and followed Anne's cue to follow her. We exited the room and started walking down a very long white hallway. She turned her head slightly to speak with me. When do you want to do this job? Tomorrow? Probably would be best to get your head straight and focus. Tonight, I shot out. It's already 6:30, she said, stopping to see if I was serious. You want to take all of this out in the next few hours? Yes, I said. I want this fricker now. I gave her a quick wink. My bloodlust for this man isn't going to quell until he's dead. She chuckled a bit. Well, if you say so, it's not like it's her first time killing someone. Flashbacks hit me like a brick wall. Everything that had occurred in the past month or so came flooding into my brain like a summer monsoon. You okay? She asked, looking at me as I was lost in my own brain. Yeah, I'm fine. You guys got like an armory around this building? She smiled, that grin coming back to her face that I'd seen earlier returned for a moment. Yes, I'll show you the way. After you, I retorted. I brought some of my weapons with me since I was pretty much swept away to LA without a second's notice. We arrived at a steel door. A man behind a clear bulletproof glass window eyed me as we approached. Hey Stan, can you let us in? She said. Sure thing, Anne. Who's the new kid? He asked hesitantly. Mike's replacement? She said quickly, a weird mix of hatred and amazement washed over his face. I stared into his eyes, knowing this man had known Mike. Sorry, I muttered softly. No words had to be exchanged. I already knew. Were you guys friends? I asked quietly. Drinking buddies, really. No one is friends around here. And after all, we're not technically supposed to know each other. He went out after pounding half a bottle of Jack, just to let you know. His scowl turned to a slight smile. You would have wanted it that way, muttering to himself with a gleam of remembrance in his eyes. Suddenly, he pushed the button and the door slid quickly open, revealing a sight that struck me with pure awe. Rows and rows of guns, ammo, and high-tech special ops gear glimmering in the fluorescent light. Take your pick, Anne said, smiling while looking at my face. I wish I could have seen my reaction. Probably only rivaled by a little kid arriving with his parents for the first time to a candy store. I started walking down the aisles, admiring at the massive collection of big kid toys they had in stock. We have a strict protocol when checking out guns and gadgets, she said. I'll update you with everything after you get back from your job. Now, pick out what you want, and I'll handle the paperwork for you. For when you get back. Sounds good to me, I said. A short summary of everything I got. 2 handguns, 2 suppressors, night vision goggles, a box of ammo, 4 extra mags, a black backpack, bolt cutters, a burglary kit, rope, black gloves, a military-grade knife, a military-grade axe, 3 flash grenades, a medical kit with EpiPens, and a slick black suit that seemed to be tailored just for me. There were a few other odds and ends. I just don't feel like diving into my memory and trying to type all these items out. I headed for the door again. You're planning on having quite a night? Quite a night tonight, aren't you? Anne said, quickly following behind me. If I get my way, yes. Yes, I am. The last few words trailing off under my breath. A metal box opened up beneath the glass window on inside of the armory. Inside of it was a clipboard with a handful of papers clamped down to it. I'll take care of the boring stuff for now. Just sign here saying that you're the one who checked these items out. I signed quickly, eager to get this started. Stan will be bringing this back tomorrow when I get in. I gotta show the newbie the process, she said. Stan gave her a quick nod and the door flew open. I flew out of it before realizing I didn't have a car at the moment. I turned around and looked at Anne, not noticing while flipping through the paperwork attached to the clipboard. She looked at me and said, Yes? Car. I need a car, I said, stuttering a bit. Oh yeah, that had slipped my mind. Follow me again. She led me around a few corridors into what seemed like the back of a warehouse. She went through a door into a large indoor garage filled with black cars and SUVs of all shapes and sizes. Take your pick, except for the ones that are parked inside their red boxes. Those are reserved for some of the top officials. I nodded quickly before running around the lot like a spoiled teenage girl getting her first car from mommy and daddy. I walked up to a set of black Bentleys, both black from head to toe, each with a set of government plates. I pointed. This one. I had a huge grin on my face and laughed. I see you have an eye for luxury, huh? I suppose, I responded. She went over to a large metal rack and looked up the spot for where it was parked in. As I approached her, she threw me the keys. Don't freaking scratch it, she barked at me as I ran back towards the car. Yeah, I looked back from across the lot. I opened the trunk and put everything in there, ready to get the night started. As I headed for the garage door, I noticed Anne waving me to drive over to her. I rolled the window down and stopped right beside her. Here's the address of where you're gonna go meet me when you're all done with this. She handed me a cell phone with an address written down in it, in the default notes app. We'll be meeting Meeting you here 20 minutes after you call us to retrieve the car and take you back to return the gear. I gave her a quick nod. As I was about to roll the window back up, she put a hand on it. I don't have to remind you that we won't think twice about putting you 6 feet under if you happen to ditch us. You normally need to build up trust for new operators before sending them out. However, I have an inclination that you won't be going anywhere, she said, looking me dead in my eyes. I know, I said. I'm not going anywhere. She took her hand off the windowsill, and the garage door started to open. I sped off, the sun setting, illumining a pink and purple sky, greeting me as day turned into night. I parked at a local pizza joint to look over a few notes. I grabbed a slice to eat while viewing everything in the file I was given. We'll call this guy Ralph. Ralph was a high-ranking banker at a major bank in downtown LA. The type of guy who spends 5 years getting promotion after promotion over guys that have been with the company for just 20 years because he was born into a family with connections. The type of rich douchebag that acquires a sick and twisted taste of erotic things as soon as he secures a position of wealth and power. The file said that he had made multiple advancements on the woman who took the hit on him, raping her one of the times. A complaint was filed on her behalf, only to be told that by the higher-ups to shut her freaking mouth if she wanted to keep a banking job anywhere around the entire West Coast. A man with connections indeed. He also said that he had mentioned something about tasting her little girl as well. This made me sick to my freaking stomach. Yet I was smiling. Smiling because this rich douchebag had no idea what was coming to him. The worst night of his life would be his last as well. No kids and a young 20-something-year-old girlfriend who was on a trip to Hawaii at the moment while he was finishing up work before taking a vacation himself. After I'd read enough and had a game plan, I started taking off. I noticed I'd only eaten half my pizza. I was so excited and nervous that I didn't have much of an appetite. The sick things I was going to do to this perverted frick. Just thinking about it makes me smile. One less sick freaking scumbag on the earth to hurt people. I was either going to make him suffer just a bit if I found the threats to the woman's daughter were in fact scared for just empty scare tactics, or gonna make him feel the pain of 1,000 medieval executions if I found evidence on the contrary. I set out around 8 to 9 p.m. to get started. I passed by the mansion community that he lived in. Guards checking in guests before they could enter. Security was terrible, but it'd be easier and more beneficial to sneak in. I found a spot about a quarter mile away and parked my car. I made my way, backpack in hand, to a back brick wall of the community shrouded by darkness. I hopped the wall and made my way to the man's house. The house was dark, vacant. It seemed empty or void of any human activity. I used the bump key to get into the garage door that led out from the side of the house. No cars were in there, neither was there one in the front. I checked the door leading into the house. It was unlocked. I slid right in and gave myself a tour of this place while making myself at home. I tried to make it quick, making my way while tipping over expensive shit like lamps and vases. Because why not? This guy's a disgusting prick. I entered one room and saw something that caught my interest. It had a few teddy bears, and upon a closer look, the dresser drawers contained children's clothing. This guy didn't have any kids, and was definitely not the type to have a niece or nephew stay the night. It would just all felt off. I could feel it. In the closet, I found a tripod accompanying an HD camera to go with it. It gave me the chills. Different sections of the house, he had turned off the street onto his driveway. It was go time. Time for this motherfricker to pay. I watched for a moment as at the second story balcony as he stumbled out of his car to the front door. He was definitely drunk, which is good. Makes an easy target. I exited the bedroom, grabbed a signed baseball bat that was hanging in the hallway, and I made my way down to the double front doors. Just as I hid out of sight in the corner, he started walking past. He put the keys in the lock. The door opened halfway. He staggered inside. He kicked the door shut behind him and started walking towards the stairs. "Hi, Ralph," I said quickly while raising the bat to my side. His eyes widened like a deer in the headlights, realizing that someone was inside of his house who wasn't supposed to be there. Before he could do anything, I swung and knocked him straight on the side of his head, slightly above his temple. He hit the ground instantly, letting out a mix between a grunt and a whimper. He turned his head slightly, trying to get a look at me. I pulled the rope out of my backpack, tied him up as tight as I could. Those knot tying lessons in Boy Scouts really came in handy. I got him into the guest bedroom downstairs. I tied him up to the sink. He was fading in and out of consciousness, but he was starting to come to. I put a gag in his mouth and duct taped it shut. Then searched his pockets. He was looking at me. His eyes were not quite able to focus on me or what was going on. As I leaned down and lifted up his chin, I looked him right in the eyes. "Hey, Ralphie, buddy. How's it going?" The only thing I could hear was his muffled attempts to speak, probably to plead with me, telling me to take whatever I want and leave. "Don't worry, buddy. I'm not here to rob ya. I'm here for something else," I said in a cheery, upbeat tone. "I'm here for her." As I pulled out a picture of the little girl, his eyes widened, showing the realization and understanding of what was going on. Knowing how fricked he actually was, more muffled pleads follow. "You don't happen to have her, do you, buddy?" A shake of his head telling me no, but I know he was full of freaking shit. After all of his goddamn executive bankers. Okay. See, here's the thing. I don't really believe you. I have a few sources that say you do have her. His eyes dropped to the tile floor, refusing to look at me. I picked up his chin and stared into his eyes. "Look, man, I'm gonna level with you. This will go a lot quicker for you and me if you just tell me where she is." I ripped the duct tape off his mouth for a second. "I don't have her," he said, the desperation gushing from his mouth. I hit him straight in the nose a few times. I heard it break, the crunch slowly muffled by his cries of pain. "See, I don't believe you. Like I said, I know you have her. I guess I'm just gonna go have to look for her. You sit tight." I chuckled a bit. Oh, who am I kidding? You're not going anywhere." My happy-go-lucky smile slowly destroyed his soul. The situation he was seeping into him bit by bit. I put the duct tape on his mouth again and secured him even tighter to the sink. His hands and feet bound tightly as to make sure he couldn't escape. I searched all around the house, to no avail. I even searched the attic and didn't find anything. I was checking one of the upstairs room and in the back of the house and looked down to the backyard. I saw a huge shed that was more of a guest house than a shed sitting on the opposite side of the pool. I went downstairs and opened the bathroom door once more. "I'll be right back, buddy. I gotta check something out," giving him a small wink as I shut the door again. I went out the back and walked towards the shed. An ominous feeling hit me as I grabbed the door to open it. I opened the door to see a beautiful project car sitting inside. It was a '69 Mustang Cobra GT. I believe there was only one floor with multiple rooms in it. One filled with gardening tools and supplies, and I saw other filled with mechanics tools to work on the car. I searched around and found nothing. I was about to give up when I saw something that caught my eye on the floor. A cardboard mat laying out of the car, presumably to keep oil stains from staining the pristine tiled floor. I removed it and got on my hands and knees to look under the car. Something caught my eye. A little outline of what looked like an entrance to a lower floor. I looked around for the keys to the car and found them sitting on the shelf next to a few other items. I got in the car and opened the garage opening Then I pulled forward to see what was underneath the car. As I got out and looked back into the garage, my suspicions were confirmed. It was a small trapdoor-looking entrance to a lower level. The only thing identifying was that there was a small outline where the door met the tile. I walked over and pried it open to find a staircase leading down to a dark pit below. I started walking down to see what this motherfricker was hiding down here. I hit the bottom of the stairs, feeling the whole time for a light switch. I finally found one, lighting up the whole room and lighting up the most disturbing scene I had ever witnessed. It was something straight out of a freaking horror movie. It looked like a dungeon, a few cages along with both small and large shackles. It was inside those cages that shook me to my very freaking core. The little girl I had seen on the computer screen earlier that day was in one of them. Her once bright blue eyes now dim with fear and anguish. As she saw me, she scooted herself up against the far corner of the small cage, afraid that I was someone else who was going to hurt her, or worse. I stood there in utter shock. I saw movement to my left. I turned my head slightly to see another girl. A little brown-haired girl that looked like she was a Mexican or South American descent. My eyes started to water uncontrollably, and I admit it, I started crying. No human could do this, especially the little girls. Only a freaking monster or a beast could do this. Don't worry, I said, staring at the little blonde girl in the eyes, talking with the quietest high-pitched voice I could ever muster up. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm gonna get you out of here. I looked around to find the keys, and to no avail, they weren't down there. Hold on, I'll be right back, okay? She gave me a quick little nod, not knowing whether she could trust me or not. I ran back in the house and grabbed the bolt cutters in my backpack. I grabbed them and passed by the bathroom. I opened the door up to see Ralph struggling to get the rope untied, but failing miserably. His eyes got wide and wider than they had ever been. I'm sure he saw me holding the bolt cutters. Oh, don't worry, motherfricker. I'm not gonna be using these on you quite yet. A little whimper escaped through the duct tape as I closed the door. I ran back to the shed and garage, out back, and flew down the stairs. As I entered the little girl's view, she crawled back into the corner cage, assuming because she thought I was gonna use the bolt cutters on her. That just wanting me to make that freaking monster inside die even slower. I approached the cage and started clipping the cage bars one by one. It looked like a makeshift enclosure, maybe one or two dog kennels welded together. As soon as I could pry it open, I tossed the bolt cutters to the side and reached my hand. Don't worry, I'm not gonna hurt you. You're safe now, I said, trying to smile and sound reassuring. She reluctantly grabbed my hand as I pulled her out and hugged her tightly, and I whispered in her ear that she was safe now, and that I was going to get her home to her parents. I set her down and I knelt down to her level. I'm going to get your little friend out of too, okay? So please sit tight until I get her out. She gave me a little nod that she understands that I started working on the other little girl's cage. I looked around for fewer of the cages, knowing at one point they could have been used. Little kids and probably teens were held here and never left alive. I pried the other cage door open and grabbed the other girl's hand. I gave her a big hug and also told her that everything was going to be okay. I set her down and I'll never forget what happened next. They hugged each other tight, not wanting to let go to each other. They were probably the only thing that made the situation a little brighter. Able to talk to one another in the pitch black to pass the time. I touched each of them on the shoulder, and I told them that it was time to go home now. They each grabbed one of my hands and led them out of that hellhole. As much as I wanted to tear the man inside to frickin' pieces, I needed to get these little girls to safety first. I called up Ann and gave her the lowdown. I asked her if she could pick the girls up and take them to a police station. I called the front gate and acted like Ralph, letting them know I was expecting a visitor. 20 minutes later, Ann arrived. Before putting them in the car, I knelt down and said, "Okay, guys, This nice lady's name is Anne. She's going to take you back to your parents. Now be good, and remember that the bad man that brought you here is gone forever. He can never get you again, okay? You guys are brave little girls, and I hope you know that. They nodded, understanding that they were finally out of that place. Their eyes finally started gaining a bit of light, knowing that it was over. I gave them each a big hug and set them in the car. The little blonde mumbled something, and I leaned in and asked her, "What was that?" With all the strength she had in her, she whispered, "Thank you," into my ear. And that's when I started freaking bawling. "You're welcome, sweetie." The other little girl slid over and gave me another hug. I nodded and said, "Now you be good." Another few nods and I shut the door. I approached the driver's window. Anne was looking at me and said, "You did a good thing. What about you-know-who? He's still in there?" "Oh yeah, he's still in there. He's about to be in frickin' pieces in about 10 minutes. She nodded and said, "Okay, just call when you're all finished up, and try not to leave too much of a mess for the cleaning crew. Okay?" "Alright," I said. "Just get the little ones to the police station. Say you found them wandering around or something. I'll figure it out." "I'll figure it out. Have fun." I just nodded and waved bye to the girls as they drove away, seeing them wave back to me as they rounded the corner of the neighborhood. I slowly walked back inside the house. It is now around 1 in the morning or so. Ralph was still trying to make it out of those ropes, his wrist bloodied with the rope. I opened the door and grabbed my backpack that was laying on the ground. "Come on, motherfucker. We're gonna have some fun now." I slammed his head against the sink, then untied the ropes that were restraining him to the sink. I led him outside the house into the garage. A look of horror came on his face when he saw the trapdoor was open. "Hey, yeah, motherfucker. I found them. They're gone now, and you're never gonna bother them again." I shoved him down the staircase. He tumbled like a rag doll. He was defeated, and he knew it. He knew that's the last time he'll ever be able to see the outside again. I just happened to change the chain him up to the middle of the floor, and went back up to close the hatch. More useless whimpering came out from the duct tape that was resting on his face. I ripped it off again and threw it to the side. I wanted to hear him scream and beg for mercy. The mercy he never thought twice about giving to the people he held down here. "Please, I was forced to do this. It wasn't my fault. I swear." He kept going on and on. I grabbed his broken nose and twisted it sideways. The pain instantaneously transmitted to his brain. "We're just getting started, my friend. Karma's a bitch." He slumped down, looking like a sorry-ass sack of potatoes. "Please, God," he pleaded. "Please, let me live. I don't want to die." I popped the cap to one of the EpiPens and jammed it into his leg. While injecting it into him, I looked into his eyes and said, "I'm the only God with you right now." Shit gets graphic here, so just a heads up. I took my 9mm and screwed a suppressor on it. I held up to his right foot. Boom! 3 shots in between his ankle and his Achilles tendon. I did the same thing for his left foot. I then threaded my remaining rope through the holes and hung him from the piping on the ceiling. He was hanging there upside down. I took the bolt cutters and severed the tendons on the back of the knees. His screams were music to my ears, each one retribution for the horrible act he had committed in this very room. I then pulled my gun and popped 2 rounds into his kneecaps. One of his Achilles snapped under the weight, and with it came a cry of pain. Before the other one snapped, he used the bolt cutters to cut it halfway through, letting the rest snap under his own weight. I stripped him down to his boxers, him lying in a mess of his own blood and sorrow on the concrete floor. I stomped his balls until one of them felt like it burst. I took my other EpiPen and injected it into him. I wanted him to suffer through this. I wanted him to feel every last freaking nerve being severed in his body. every last nerve in his body. I picked up the bolt cutters and laid him on his back. I put the under of his boxers and positioned his PP in between the edges. He looked down at what I was doing for a quick moment and yelled at a quick "No!" before I sliced his dick off. Instantaneously, he started bleeding even more. Finally, I put my gloves on and found his severed penis. I picked it up and forced his mouth open. I shoved it in there and taped it shut. He was going to eat his own freaking penis, just like I'm sure he made other people do. Other freaking kids do down here. I sat against the wall watching the life drain from his eyes. Lastly, I went back up the stairs and grabbed some fuel from the garage. I slowly poured it all over his body and getting in all of his wounds. I packed up what was left into my backpack and put it on. You brought this on yourself. I hope you freaking understand that in your last minute of life, where this freaking scum. I spit on him and then let a fat trail of gas to the beginning of the staircase. I set it ablaze and watched the flames engulf him, swallowing him whole. He was going to be taken from hell on earth to actual hell. He was wailing and screaming. I ascended the steps. I called Anne and told her it was done. And then I was on my way. I closed the hatch, hopping the wall, and left. All evidence was cleaned up by a disposal team within the next hour. I kinda feel bad for leaving such a mess. Well, that's it for the night. Some of you might think I'm a freaking sociopath who has real problems. Others may think my actions were justified. I think he had it coming, and he deserves every last freaking second of that night. I may see him in hell one day. Who knows? I will have to pay for my sins one way or another. All I know is that karma's a bitch. I was just the person who happened to deliver that karma in that instance. This was the most brutal case, but it was my first case. One more sick motherfricker off the planet, and I say good riddance. Until next time. Until next time. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's story. If you guys did, like I said at the beginning of the video, leave a like and consider subscribing, and leave a comment telling me what your favorite part or the scariest part of the video was. And so I really hope you guys enjoyed, and I shall see you guys in the next story. Stay scary.